Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday Summary, episode 240. I'm your host, Kyle. And it's not as exciting to come on this morning and talk about the Reds with 4 straight Premier League losses. Yesterday being the fourth against Brentford, 3-2. A lot of controversy surrounding the game as well. Guys, this is a problem. This is a big problem. 4 losses. We got the win against Frankfurt in the Champions League. And there's something going on with the team. And really, this show this morning is it's going to be you guys giving me your thoughts about what's going on, what could we change, but also me just kind of ranting about my analysis of the team thus far. Let me know about the quality. Let me know about the microphone. We've had some issues with that in past weeks, so let me know. All right, so first off, I'm going to give you what Slot's post-match press conference, what he said. Okay, and again, if there's issues with the quality or the microphone, let me know. So Slot on his emotions after the game. He said, like you said, disappointing again. You are always hoping to win a game of football during the week, although it is only 2 days rest when you come over here. Of course you are hoping for a better result, but I was also hoping and expecting a better performance because the performance was far from what we are used to. Even if we are losing, our performances have been better than tonight. I was about to say, he better come and save his ass with that because we've been playing like ass recently. On the question of what would he identify most that he was disappointed with, all right, he said doing the basics right. Although if you are 1-0 down, 2-0 down, 3-1 down with the energy in the stadium, that is definitely helpful for them. And they are a very good team in winning duels and winning second balls. So you have to give them credit for that as well. But of course, it is hard to win a game of football if the other team wins more duels, more second balls than you, especially if that is also something they are playing off. Again, like I've said many times, it is also difficult to win a game of football if the set piece balance is in their favor. All right. And I want to skip to the tactical adjustments that he made at halftime. All right, because this is interesting. So he said Florian played in the first half also a lot of on the inside, but Mo played a little bit more central as well, like we did this week against Frankfurt. If you are 2-1 down, I was expecting in the second half, then maybe in moments to be a bit lower than it is always. And then it's always good to have Mo on the side where you can get his crosses in, his 1v1s. But it wasn't as if the second half was completely ours. That was definitely not the situation. They were in the game a lot. Although we scored the 3-2 and had a few moments to score the 3-2, they definitely had their moments to also score the 4-1. So right off the bat, he recognizes that this is one of the worst performances of the bad performances, the losses that namely. All right. His analysis doesn't sound as if there's specific areas where he saw problems per se. Maybe more so on the effort side or things not working out or pointing out the fact that they had more set pieces or won more duels, right? So pointing out the areas in head-to-head matchups where we lost, which is interesting if you want to analyze it statistically. He goes on to say, though, I think it is the crucial moment when just before they scored the 2-0, there was a moment where Cody dribbled inside the box and they didn't play the ball. I think if you would show both situations, which has been all over social media, by the way, the penalty we conceded in that moment, to every referee in the world, they would tell you maybe both were nothing, but if you had to give one of the two, then I would definitely give the one to Cody. The bad luck for us was that I don't think the referee was intending to give a penalty for that, but he thought he'd given them a free kick, and then VAR stepped in and gave him the pen. And so that's where this instance lies. A lot of the controversy around this game is surrounding that instance, right? Cody not given the penalty, but the penalty given to Van Dijk and all of that stuff. Now, I looked at the stats, right? Because I think most of us can agree that it is the defense. Okay? I looked at the stats to try to see, like, do the stats show us that there is a shortcoming somewhere? Like, whether it's, big chances allowed or, expected goals allowed, whatever the case may be. And I looked at it. So expected goals allowed were right in the middle of the pack. Okay? Expected goals per 90 was up at 2.5. Expected goals allowed per 90 was up at 2.5. We've also exceeded the amount of goals we've allowed this season by 2 compared to last season. We've conceded double the amount of goals at this time last season. We've conceded double this season. So statistically, I also looked at pressures. I looked at pressing percentile, shots allowed, all of that stuff. The only thing that really stood out to me was conceding double the amount of goals as this time last season. That was really the only glaringly obvious thing. Everything else was we were either in the middle of the pack, we were in the mid to high percentiles with pressing, possession, whatever, shots allowed. And feel free to do your own analysis, but that's what my analysis gathered. And so what I've seen on social media and what I've seen across Reddit threads and X and everything like that is a lot of people are attributing it, the conservative ones, that is, like, all right, we need to fix the formation. This team is a perfect team for a 3-5-2 or whatever the case may be. That's the first school of thought. And then I've seen the slot out crowd. So those are the two topics we're going to discuss today, because I really want to get your thoughts. And I'm already seeing some of them in the chat right now. I want to get your thoughts. And I also need to get my thoughts out, because you guys know me as a very optimistic fan, or maybe some would even say naive fan, because of how I look at the situations we're in, whether it's good or bad or whatever. We will discuss that and look at the fact that where we are in the table, right? Because in all honesty, guys, we've been dreadful, but we're not. I think at the end of today, we could be 7 points back of first if Arsenal win. I think Arsenal still have to play. I was looking at it yesterday, but we need to talk about it because it is a concern with 4 straight Premier League losses. Yeah, you beat Frankfurt, right? But you lost to Galatasaray. Of the games you did win, of the last 25 games, right? I saw this graphic, and this kind of put it into more perspective. We have a 48% win percentage over the last 25 games. We had a stretch in there of like 8 wins. But, and then the other narrative is that people say that we won the league last year with Klopp's team, not Slot's team. And although that is correct, because Slot, he didn't make any signings. There are 2 sides of that coin. One being we won with Klopp's team, and the other being Slot still had to come in and manage the team that Klopp gave him. Right? So where you take credit away from Slot, you also have to give it, because the team won, but Slot still managed them. So I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's go over to the chat and say good morning to everyone. Good morning to my mom. How are you? Oh boy, everything's throwing me off now. People are changing their names, but it's all good. Bonkers. Ross is in here. Bruno, good morning. Hans Lezolo, Fakito, good morning. Robert Stewart, good morning. Let's go right to Robert Stewart with the latest comment. He says Slot needs to change. These tactics are not working. At one point, Van Dijk, Kirkej, and Gakpo were all standing near each other. Then who's defending? Van Dijk and Salah need a break. Interestingly enough, Van Dijk and Szoboszlai have played every minute possible in the Premier League, if I saw that correctly. And if they didn't, they're playing the exact same amount. So I just assume that they have 9 games. So if anyone if we're talking about giving people a break, right, you'd probably put Szoboszlai into that camp as well. But the thing is, Szoboszlai is like 7 years younger than these guys, right? So he has his youth about him, but he's been our best player. especially after yesterday. Soboslai has been our best player. Ross says we've made a lot of changes to the team, and that's why we're at odds. Going back to the penalty, saying genuinely the softest penalty I've seen given in my life. So, oh, shoot, I forgot to change the banner. My bad, guys. There we go. Forgot to change the banner. So, look, let's chat about the penalties here, because how many times in the past has there been a game where there's been a bad call? Dozens of times. There's bad calls all the time. There's no calls all the time that should be calls. There's missed handballs. There's all sorts of stuff. As much as that pisses me off, it's not the storyline here. It's definitely the most controversial side of the game, but it's not the storyline. The storyline is the fact that this team, and the players recognize it too. Look at Robbo's post-match interview yesterday. The players recognize it too. This team isn't executing on the game plan, right? And now, granted, I read a lot of the article, but I did not read most of it. The headline said that Robbo said there's no structure, which implies that the team isn't being set up with a game plan. But in his interview, he says the game plan wasn't followed. So there's a difference. I think there's this narrative out there that is trying to paint Slot as the reason the team isn't doing well, right? And although that's understandable, because maybe he's not making adjustments, or our system, we keep seeing the same problems game in and game out, namely being, the defensive side of things. And say what you want about our ability to produce offense. When I was doing my statistical analysis, our offense was top of the league in several categories. Dangerous chances per 90, like all of those different metrics that I looked at, we were up there with Arsenal, Man City, all of those teams. Okay. So that we're creating chances. We're just not executing. So it is the defense. And now we go back to one of the comments earlier saying that Van Dijk needs a break. If we want to look at the fact that Van Dijk needs a break, you could try to give Van Dijk a break. I can guarantee you he'd say, no, I'm playing. So that's off the table, right? Konate's been hot and cold. And then, Leone's out injured. So what does that leave you with? Gomez? We didn't get Guéhi, right? We saw Endo play center back. We saw Gravenberch play center back. You don't have the depth defensively. Kirkesh is a liability. Robbo, people are calling for Robbo to start again, which that's why you keep Robbo around, right? There's no guarantee that the guys we brought in, even though they're great with whatever squad they were with, there's no guarantee that they're going to do great with us. And so Kirkesh has been a liability. Frimpong's injured, right? Florian had a great match midweek. And then again, short term memory, people just forget that. And the second someone has a bad game, it's over, right? Great example was different threads, different forums yesterday talking about Salah, which still reigns true. Salah is struggling. Salah's been a ghost, a shell of his former self. He removed the LFC, all that. So I don't even know if that's true. I didn't check on it. But the point is, as soon as he scored that late goal yesterday, the narrative shifted from Salah, which is honestly all I was seeing, to Slot. We got to look at the overall picture here. So let's go to the two schools of thought, right? So you have the Slot out crowd, and then there's like the chemistry crowd, which I fall into. I fall into the fact that Slot, this is his first season where he chose the players he brought in. He chose every single one that he brought in. Let's assume that, okay? Every player he brought in, I don't care who you are, you can agree, is a quality player. You cannot say this side is poor. This side, pound for pound, player for player, is one of the best, if not the best in the Premier League. The team has been poor. The tactics have been poor. The game plans have been poor. The response has been poor in game. And so I err on the side of this is a chemistry thing. Slot is trying to, whether he's changed tactics or not, I haven't looked too deep into his setup, but I feel it's the same as last year. He's just trying to implement the new players into this system, namely Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak, right? Kirkej and Frimpong, right? And two of the people that come to mind for me, Isak not quite there yet, that are just struggling to fit into the system or just struggling to adapt are Kirkej and Wirtz, right? Wirtz, whatever you want to say, is a bigger letdown because of the price tag. All right. But Kirkej is more of a liability. There are several things that the team could do better, but I think that the new players fitting into the system is ultimately what these performances come down to. Okay? Because as soon as they click, guys, as soon as they click, there's no way these guys can be stopped. There's no way. But they're not clicking. These players don't just come to Liverpool, play under Slot, and forget how to play the game. There is an adaptation period. Sometimes it's instant. Sometimes you have players that come in and instantly get it. Instantly adapt. Whether it's from a different league, different team, different system, whatever, they instantly adapt. That is not the case right now. They're not instantly adapting. So to my point, to my view, this is not a Slot issue. I might get some hate for that because a lot of people are thinking that Klopp's going to come back, and it's like, guys, you got to move on. All right? There was a point where we lost 6 straight under Klopp. Right? And people were saying Klopp out, this and that. And it's like, I get it. That's just the cycle. That's just what happens. As soon as the team starts performing bad, everyone wants to throw blame. I get it. We demand results. And frankly, the team should be giving us results with who they have on the pitch. But the fact of the matter is, as much as we want to say we got everything we needed, which we did, it is not going to be a perfect transition. It hardly ever is, especially when you virtually have an entire new attack. You let Diaz go, right? You get 2 brand new strikers in. Rest in peace to Jota. Jota's not there anymore. Salah isn't playing up to what he's been. And some people are saying Salah carried us to the league last year. That's why, all these problems existed, but he carried us. Whatever. I mean, I pointed out the stats already to this point in this season. We've conceded double the amount of goals as last season. I am still optimistic that this is strictly a bad run of form. And bad is an understatement. It's awful. It's an awful run of form. Okay? And you can even say this entire season has been bad form, and we just got lucky the first 5 games. You can say that. I'll agree with you. Okay? And I think the biggest thing that people are struggling with is the fact that you come off of winning the league, and why are you struggling this year? And it's only down to getting completely new players. You're in crucial positions. Our Slot is trying to implement Florian Wirtz into a system that didn't play with a 10 for years. We didn't play with a 10 for years. I mean, we didn't. And I mean, even last year, I don't even think we played with a 10 last year. I mean, you could say Jones at times played there, Soboslai did, but Florian Wirtz is an out-and-out either left mid or cam. Like, that's what he is. Some people say wing. He's not, in my opinion. And so when you bring in a player like that, it's clear, paying that price tag, it's clear that Slot has a vision to build around a player that plays in that position, or at least build a system that utilizes that. That's a huge change. I feel like Ross says a good thing here. It says future proofing is rarely an instant improvement. This is a long season. It's the longest season in sports. Okay? It's like a 9-month season. We've been playing for 2. And over the last month, we've been in awful form. In that month, there's been 2 international breaks. And we started playing Champions League. I'm not making excuses. I'm just saying this is a huge adjustment for some of these guys, for this system. Not for Slot, not for the guys who have been playing, but if you're trying a completely new system with new players, you got to give some grace. And that's just what I'm going to say. It's awful to lose 4 in a row. It's awful to slip from top of the league to 7th or wherever we're at right now, 6th or 7th. Probably after today, even lower than that. It sucks. But the thing is this will happen. It shouldn't, but it does. It happens to every team. Now, the extent, 4 losses in the Premier League in a row is a lot. I could see some draws thrown in there, like if it was a loss, draw, that's a little different. But 4 losses and then a random 5-1 win thrown in there, it's hard to wrap your head around as a fan. All right, they need more time to adjust. That's what it is. So I get it, which leads me into this second school of thought, Slot out. Those who are saying Slot needs to go, I can empathize with you. But my opinion on that is an impulsive point of view, an impatient point of view. And I don't agree with it. I just don't. Because let's look at it this way. All right. The start of the season, 5 wins in a row. Regardless of how we won, we won. Just like regardless of how we lose, we lost. We won those games. If we didn't win those, we could have a conversation about Slot being on the hot seat, about him needing to produce results. Those 5 losses are keeping us afloat, those 5 wins are keeping us afloat right now. And anybody saying Slot out at this point, again, is just impulsive, and I think that's just the actual incorrect way to think. Because going back to my earlier point, people saying, oh, he won the league with Klopp's team. He won the league, period, point blank. In fact, I think that's more of a testament to Slot as a manager because he didn't bring in any players. So when you bring in 2 new fullbacks, a new 10, 2 new strikers, you have your starting keeper out. I mean, really, is there not a way to just give the guy grace and say, hey, look, we're having a bad run of form, but logically, we have a new team. Okay? Come December, I know that's given him a lot of time. I'm telling you. Come December, come the Christmas time, that's when I start making decisions because historically, if you look at where teams are positioned at Christmas or when the winter transfer window opens, you can make a very accurate prediction on where they finish at the end of the year based on, historical stats. So I think that's when judgments are made. And that's when we should judge whether or not that's even a topic of conversation. Slot should not go anywhere. And I saw a comment in here. Where are we at? Okay, well, this is a great one too. Okay, they're both from Hannah. Shout out to Hannah. So first off, Klopp didn't win the league with that team. Number one. Number two, sacking Slot would be sheer madness. And it would. It would. Right? And again, what if the next manager loses games? We sack him too, and the manager after him. So that's the point. There is an argument to be made, guys, for continuity. Let's look at some examples, right? Okay. Let's look at Wolves, Chelsea, any team you can think of where there hasn't been a continuity of manager, right? Even Arsenal. Arsenal is a great example of sticking with a manager, even when they're not performing, if you truly believe in the manager and you truly believe you got the right guy. Mikel Arteta has been one of the most hot and cold managers in terms of performance, how the fans feel about him. I mean, just go and watch the documentary, the All or Nothing documentary, right? Go on any. I mean, that's just a good example. But they stuck with him, and now look at Arsenal, right? The continuity that Arsenal stuck with during that rebuild, as opposed to like they looked for the right manager, right? They went Unai Emery, didn't work out, and they went Arteta. If I'm missing a manager in there, let me know. But I think that was the order of operations for Arsenal. And they stuck with him. Because what that allows the club to do is establish a philosophy of football, tactical philosophy as well. And the players know how the manager game plans, how to use or how to play under them. And of course, players have to like them. But if the players didn't like Slot, some of them wouldn't have signed an extension. It's like, maybe that's why Trent went, right? I don't think it is, but maybe that's why. Came up under Jurgen. Found out Jurgen was planning to leave. He's like, I don't know if I want to be here under Slot. I kind of want to go explore new avenues. Maybe that's what it boils down to, guys. Right? But if Slot wasn't the guy, Liverpool would not have brought him in. He wasn't on anyone's radar. We were talking about Ruben Amorim. We were talking about Xabi Alonso. We were talking about freaking the guy, the Leipzig manager, the German guy. I can't remember his name right now. It's on the tip of my tongue. We were talking not Nagelsmann. It might be Nagelsmann. I can't remember. We were talking about all of these guys. And then all of a sudden, this Slot guy gets thrown in as the top prospect to come in and succeed Klopp. And you're like, oh, well, he must be good. He must be great. And he has been. As of right now, he is the guy. He is the guy. You cannot wash away a Premier League title and the success he has had thus far with this team after a month of poor form. You cannot do it. You can't do it. And I think that sets us aside as a club from other clubs and how they're run, because there are clubs, going back to the point I was trying to make with Chelsea and maybe Wolves and, teams like that, where if you aren't performing up to the standards of the club after 6 months or a year, you're gone, right? I don't see a world, right, where we fire Slot after this couple months of bad form, hell, even a year, I'd find it very difficult that we would fire Slot if we finished 6th this year. I really think they'd give him one more preseason to prep with these new guys and then into the next season. And if by October or November of that season he wasn't performing, he'd be gone. Because that's what they did with Brendan Rodgers. Right? They gave him a full season of like his own tactics. And then into the next season, he still wasn't performing well. The team wasn't performing well, and they said, see you later. Plus, Klopp became available. You will create more problems than you solve by firing Slot right now. There's zero question. You will create more problems than you would solve. Because not only is the team looking lost right now, the defense looking like they're running around with chickens with their heads cut off. You get rid of the manager, they're sitting there like, well, now what do we do? Right? They'd have no idea what to do. It just wouldn't make any sense. Let's go and see what you guys have to say here. Fakito says 4 losses in a row. LFC fans Slot out who win his title in the first season. Pause a moment and think about Arsenal fans are still trusting the process. The only time I appreciate Arsenal fans. Kind of what I was getting at, right? They don't have the success to show for the process, but you can see that Arsenal are doing everything right. Not sure there will be a record points tally for the winter. A lot of teams will beat each other. What else we got? Ross here. We also need to remember how difficult the Premier League is to win. It's the most competitive league in the world, he says. And then Hannah, that's a good point. This is the transitional season we should have had last season. Yeah, I think the reason it wasn't necessarily is because it was the same team playing together. Even under a new system, it's the same team. Think about it this way, guys. Think about players last year that were like so crucial to our success, right? I honestly feel as if McAllister and Trent were crucial parts to our success as well as Salah, right? And then you look at this year, McAllister, either he's not favored or he's struggling with an injury or it's not right, but McAllister he's not being used the same way, and he's certainly not playing the same way. Trent's gone. So you have a new right back. Bradley, kind of hit or miss depending on the day. Salah's not playing up to his, previous levels, even though he still is our highest goal and assist guy, I'm pretty sure. You can make that argument. So you have all these guys who are really key players, but then you have other guys stepping up, right? Like you have Soboslai stepping up. You have Robbo coming in when it matters. Ekatike, right? There's still people who are producing. I think it's the team as a whole is in that transition period. They need time. And like, well, why did they win the first 5 games, Kyle? We got lucky. Frankly, we got lucky. And now we're not following the game plan, or we are failing to execute the game plan, or maybe teams are just outplaying us. That's possible. A good team will beat talent any day. What I'm worried about, and I had this thought yesterday, what I am very, very terrified of is that we've been crying for, follow me here for a second, because I think this is a really good take. We have been crying for our club to spend the big bucks to get people for years, right? And so this summer, we did it. We got Isak. We got Ekatike. We got Verts. We went out and we got Frimpong and Kirkesh, right? We did the things. And say what you want about there were better players available, whatever. Everybody agrees that this is the best transfer window on paper that we've ever had. We also, just in terms of spend, not net spend, but like buying players, it's got to be the most. If I'm wrong, but it's got to be the most. All right. What I'm afraid of is when you bring in top talents like that, right? And you don't really scout for the right guys. You are potentially putting the plans in place to become a PSG type team. That is what worries me. Is a team with all the talent in the world, but you cannot create chemistry for whatever reason. That's what worries me the most. Okay? I'm not saying that's what's happening. That's just what worries me. Because I'm not saying we have the best players in every position in the world trying to fit together. But I'm saying you have players with huge auras, egos, baggage, let's say. Right? You have Van Dijk, you have Salah, and I'm not saying they're cocky. I'm just saying you have players that are in the conversation for like the best in their position, right? You have Isak, you have Wirtz, you have Gravenberch. You have a lot of phenomenal players. And to make that work, where you have players that for their entire lives, namely the ones we just brought in, have been the best players on their team, not only is it could be a culture shock, a tactical shock, it could be an ego shock, right? Look at Isak, his history, right? He went to Newcastle. He was instantly the best player on Newcastle. He was the best player at Sociedad. And now you come to Liverpool where you're battling for playtime because there's another striker who's producing more than you. Like, he hasn't had that in his career. Look at Wirtz. Wirtz in the Leverkusen Academy gets brought up. He's instantly, maybe not instantly, but he is, I think he won like Young Bundesliga Player of the Year or something like that. And he was a staple. He was talked about as like the best player in that side. Teams game plan for him. You bring him to Liverpool with this huge price tag. Now he's sitting on the bench because he's not producing. These are all things that you need to take into account. Couple that with the fact that Slot's actually trying to make the system work however he can by trying different players in different positions, timing of people. You know, it is a big change. I'm going to give the team time. I'm going to give the team time to adapt. There's going to be growing pains. I think it's delayed growing pains because of how well we did last year. But I am going to give it time, okay? And that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Liverpool have lost 11 games now out of 26 with Slot. If you're talking about this season, yeah, it's been rough. Peter says, Slot out-coached by a man who last season was Brentford's set-piece coach. Okay? And Tony, I mean, this is ultimately what I'm getting at. We have the players, not the team. That's it. You have the players, not the team. This has been my criticism of teams like PSG up until last year for years. And United, too. I have just always been a firm believer that a team can go further and win more things than a team with average players than a team where you just buy a trophy. I firmly have believed that. And once PSG got rid of those like Messi and Neymar, and they had success, like I'd see they built something, right? Look at Arsenal. I mean, I'm maybe not using the best examples, but that's where my head's at with this. And I have full confidence that Slot and the team will figure it out by the end of the year, and we're going to be fine. Right? Even if we don't win the title again, I have full confidence that we're top 4, no question. Okay? Because Sunderland is in there right now. And unless this is another Leicester year, they won't be there. Sunderland. Good for Sunderland. Not a Sunderland hater. But I mean, come on. Tony says Slot looked lost yesterday. We are supporters. We support. Peter says, if I could see signs of improvement, I'd give him more time. And maybe that's where most of this criticism is coming from, is the fact that loss after loss after loss after loss, and the fans aren't seeing what they need to see in terms of improvement or adjustments. And that's where I disagree. I talked about this last week in the fact that I see Slot trying in terms of like tactics at the start of games, playing certain players, and maybe personnel decisions, maybe not tactics, personnel decisions. He's trying to change things up. I'm not a genius at analyzing tactics, so that's why I go to the stats. But the eye test is really more prevalent than anything else. There is a breakdown in tactics between how we possess the ball and transition into defense, right? Under Klopp, it was like the criticism of the high line. It's very similar with this, but it's not us playing a high line. It's more so between midfield and our defensive line, and you guys can go and watch this. There's just a massive gap. There's so much space. And so as soon as the opposition beats the midfield on the counter or in possession or whatever, they're in. They're in for a chance. And then you have Van Dijk, Konate, Kirkesh, whoever's back, and they're struggling to defend. Or they're not communicating, or they're bunched up because they're rushing back. I mean, it doesn't seem like there is a clear way to defend on the break or when under pressure. Right? And maybe it is a chemistry thing. Maybe because I feel like Konate and Van Dijk have it, but I don't know if Kirkesh is quite understanding what he needs to do from his position, like Robbo would. And even in the past, when you have fullbacks that are so dynamic and they're so far up the pitch or they're getting involved in the attack, you're just going to run into that. You're going to run into the wide channels being open and central defenders being pulled out, and then there's gaps. You're going to run into that. The reason I'm not a manager is because they need to figure out a system to play both ways. You need to be able to defend the counter to that system or don't play the system. Figure out another system. Shayna, what's going on? This was another thing I saw bonkers. The long ball is a big problem. The long ball is a very big problem. And so this led me to looking at the stats for pressing. So pressing wise, and I was talking about this too in some of my group chats with other Liverpool fans, our pressing is just not effective. It's not. There's times where it's effective, I think, but ultimately, and I always go back to this example that I saw against United. There was a point in that game where it was a 3v3 press. It was like McAllister, Soboslai, and maybe, I can't even remember, maybe it was Bradley, maybe it was Gravenberch. Maybe John. I can't even remember who played, but I legit remember United just one touch passed around every press attempt and got the ball through. I mean, like butter, just easy, just completely, we're not pressured at all. Because a good press, you see players closing down space, passing backwards, right? Like having to sprint out of pressure. You're not seeing that. If there's a press on, you're seeing an open pass almost immediately, whether it's a long ball like we were talking about or just an easy pass to someone in space. There's always something open. And even if we're playing a possession style game and we're just trying to win the ball back, you have to get the ball back. And so if you're not pressing effectively and you're not defending well, how are you going to get the ball back? Right? It's like you're almost waiting for the other team to make a mistake. I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling a little bit, but I think about that Man United example, and it should just never be that easy to make passes. It shouldn't. You should always try to pressure the man with the ball. You should. Make him make a hurried decision. Even if he makes a decision and makes a successful pass, hurrying the decision is what you need to do. I don't know, guys. I'm at a loss in terms of like what we can do to improve, but it's clear that there's a defensive and chemistry problem. I'd love to have Steve here today to give me his thoughts, but I think the defense is to blame, and I'm just not on the boat of slot out. That's not me. I'm not slot out. I'm not. I believe in the guy. I do. This team needs to be motivated somehow because they have the talent and we've seen the system work. But right now, it's not. Say what you want about slot, but also at the end of the day, you have to hold the people on the pitch accountable. You have to. A good coach will get players played. Oh, that was an awful sentence. A good coach or good coaching, what's the saying? Good coaching can get players paid. What is it? I can't remember, but basically it comes down to the fact that as a coach, right, your successes are attributed to the players, right? But when the players play poorly, you're the first to go. So that's why management is so tough. That's why the turnover is so high, is because you have players under contracts and you have managers under contracts too, but you're not going to fire a player. You're not going to let a player go unless like it's a Sacco issue. Like it's just so rare you see that, but it's so common that the manager gets let go. When at a certain point, if I'm slot, I'm looking at these guys and I'm obviously taking responsibility for mistakes that I've recognized, but I'm also saying to them, look, I am giving you my absolute best. That's all I can do. If you guys do not go out there and execute, I can't play for you. Right? And then if it's still an issue, if that doesn't motivate them, then you look at changing things in the locker room. But after 4 losses and, a poor month of form, I'm not firing the manager. I'm not. I think it's premature. I'm going to wrap the show up here today with just reading some comments from you guys here. Ross says, I thought with the double pivot in midfield, it would protect our center backs. You would think. And it would also give some coverage too if a center back was pulled out wide or whatever the case may be. But and especially with a 4-2-3-1, you'd think that's the case, but I don't know. Tactically, I'm just not as educated as I want to be on to like looking, and I also haven't had the time to just like look at what is the issue. What are players doing? What are they not doing? What are they being told not to do? All of that stuff. Fakito says, once this team clicks, we're probably talking about the world's best team, so it'll need time. And I think everyone knows that deep down. Even rival teams know that. The transfer window that Liverpool had this year, which is also why I think the criticism is so harsh, because when you lose 4 in a row, which is very rare for Liverpool Football Club, after acquiring the players you've acquired, it's like, what are you doing? But they've been bad. Once they click, though, it'll be good. Peter says, Gomez on for Verts was the last straw. It's funny you say that because I think at that point, Slot was just grasping at straws. He was just like, let me just do anything in my power to just like figure this out. and then we'll end it with here. Calafiori, Dan Burn, Timber, Vardy, all. Most teams play with right or left back who is a defender first, so that they aren't so easy to beat. Also, they have a genuine DM and wingers who press and recover the ball. So, yeah, you're right. But again, I think it's down to the system. So it's clear that Slot wants to play with a system where you have prolific and fast wing play from the defensive position, that is, so wing backs. And we have a DM, regardless of what people say, Gravenberch is the best DM in the Premier League on current form. Like over the last year and a half. And he's like, well, he's not a DM. He's been playing DM for a year and a half. It's like, so I'm going to classify him as a DM. He has the size, play style. He's a beautiful DM. And one area that maybe he could improve on is winning the ball back, right? Pressing. Because he's great in possession. He's great at facilitating, progressive carries or passing the ball or whatever. But yeah. And I think where Slot is struggling is he doesn't want to play Gravenberch and Soboslai in a double pivot with Florian up top. He doesn't want to utilize Soboslai in that position. Because Soboslai has been so good at pressing, he needs to put him further up the pitch. So, or in an area where he can get high up the pitch. So either right back or whatever the case may be. Maybe that's why McAllister hasn't been playing so much. But what I would like to see, and we kind of saw it already, but he used Jones, is I would like to see Gravenberch and McAllister, again, in the double pivot, and Florian Wirtz in the 10. We've seen it, but I've just... like that would address that midfield because McAllister and Soboslai in the midfield, dominant last year. But because he brought in Wirtz, it is Slot's job now to figure out what works. Does Wirtz need to be held more accountable for his defensive effort? Maybe. But they got to figure something out because it's the midfield into the defense that's the issue. And Tony, I thought about that Chelsea meme where there is no passion, there is no aggression, there is no vision. That's all I think about since we've been on this losing streak. It's kind of makes a silver lining. It's kind of funny. But guys, I appreciate your input. And I think we just ride it out. We support, like Ross says, we got to support the team. Team does not need criticism right now. They know what they're doing wrong. They know they're not playing well. Everyone says it, from Slot to Robbo to Van Dijk. Every single person knows. They're not sitting there saying, oh, yeah, everything's fine. They know. Let's give them some grace. Let's give them some support, right? And then when you want to roast them, you come to Nothing But Red Sunday Summary and we just talk shit. All right? All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate everyone's support. Just hang in there, guys. We'll pull out of this. Until next time, Reds. Take care.